nice, wide, establishing shots to give us a sense of place and time. We don't get scary moments accompanied by loud chords of music. We don't get close-ups of characters reacting to what they're seeing in shots and reverse shots. Instead, everything we see is jarringly shot through two handheld cameras. One is a cheap early 90s video camera, and the other a black and white 16mm film camera, which doesn't record sound. The footage isn't shot with a steady, impartial, God's eye view like you might see in a Kubrick or Carpenter film. Instead, everything is being shot by our characters, three film students who are hungry, cold, scared, and paranoid.
I can't believe you can be such an asshole!
And the unstable quality of the footage itself reflects this.
Get this fucking camera off!
This way of telling a story, of course, doesn't feel quite so unusual these days. The found footage subgenre has become one of the most popular within horror. Movies in which everything we see is being filmed by a character in the world of the story, supposedly giving everything that's happening a sense of realism, authenticity. The phrase lightning in a bottle gets thrown around a lot these days, but the Blair Witch Project feels truly unique. Nothing can or will ever replicate its power, nor moment in culture, technology, and storytelling. The Blair Witch Project somehow manages to straddle both old and new, analog and digital, traditionalism and...
This is Burkittsville, formerly Blair. It is a small, quiet Maryland town. Much like a small, quiet town anywhere.
It's easy to argue that the reason the Blair Witch Project scared so many people back in 1999 is simply because it was made to look real. People thought what they were watching was genuine. But I think it's more complicated than that. This kind of woozy analog horror has been present in art house and experimental film for as long as cinema has existed. Look at this moment in Ingmar Bergman's Persona, when the film itself seems to react to a particularly tense moment between our main characters, and the film breaks down. The result is creepy and uncomfortable. It's a kind of breaking of the fourth wall, and it puts us, the audience, in an unsafe place. Of course, analog horror has been used in TV. In 1987, the television signals of two TV stations in Chicago, Illinois were hijacked briefly, sending a pirate broadcast of this footage. An unidentified person wearing a Max Headroom mask. Nobody quite knows who was responsible for this intrusion or why it was done. That strange, grainy footage being beamed into people's homes without permission feels creepy, intrusive, and nightmarish. In 1992, speaking of invading our living rooms through the TV, one of the most terrifying examples of analog horror occurs in Hideo Nakata's Ring. Released 1 year before the Blair Witch Project, its strange use of surreal imagery mixed with analog technology makes it one of the most uncanny horror films ever made. Something about the look and feel of analog horror is unmatched. That grainy imagery, the jarring sounds. It strikes a queasy balance of feeling somehow genuine, yet completely otherworldly. There's a strange kind of disconnect going on in our brains. Be descending the stairs. She's filming everything through the 16mm film camera, which, as we know, doesn't record audio. Of course, by the end of the 1990s, analog technology was fading out. VHS was replaced by DVD, film cameras were being replaced by digital cameras, and of course, by the late 90s, the internet was now a thing in pretty much every single home. But the early days of the internet also felt somewhat dangerous. All of a sudden, we had unlimited access to all kinds of material. There was no way of censoring or regulating this material, and there was no way of knowing if anything we stumbled across on the internet was real or a hoax. The Blair Witch Project, of course, historically was one of the first films to really utilize the internet in its marketing, with this strange, creepy website that began to build the myth of the Blair Witch and introduce us to our three main characters who would go missing in the woods. By the time audiences sat down to watch the film, they may have already checked out the website and other marketing materials that had already built an entire backstory for them. Audiences sort of knew what they were about to see. Three filmmakers going into the woods but never return. A way of world building or creating narrative across multiple platforms, something that would continue to grow through the 2000s. Suddenly, we were beginning to see a new kind of digital folk horror, whether it was stories being shared on forums known as creepypastas, multi-platform found footage sagas like Marble Hornets, or strange uncanny images that were caught on camera and shared around social media like the Slender Man. As digital technology has evolved, so has horror storytelling, and we've seen countless examples of filmmakers using new, innovative ways to tell scary stories by using up-to-date technology to make the horror feel more real and more immediate. But nothing will ever film that sits perfectly in that uncanny valley between analog and digital, between old and new, art house and grindhouse, between the mundane and the